Ma'am, we couldn't find your husband. That's what the officer told me. The day Daniel disappeared, just days after our daughter was born. I tried to carry on, but 6 years later, something happened that shook me to my core. My daughter, always oddly intuitive, froze while playing in the garden. She pointed to the ground and said, "Mom, hurry. Dad's down there. He needs you to find him." My heart nearly stopped. I turned pale and called the police on the spot. My name's Ivy. I'm 34. For the longest time, I believed my story was just another quiet tragedy. I grew up in a traditional town where women were expected to endure more than they should. Even as a little girl, I sensed life wouldn't hand me victories. It would test how much I could survive. I met Daniel when we both worked at the same bank. He was quiet and kind, always with this calm, thoughtful smile. I was driven, intense. Maybe that's what pulled me toward him. He'd just come out of a rough breakup and said he wasn't ready for anything serious, but I knew I wanted more. Before long, we were inseparable. 5 years in, he proposed in the park where we always had lunch. His mom, Phoebe, welcomed me with open arms. He told me she raised him on her own, and I admired her strength. We skipped the big wedding to save money. Starting a family wasn't easy. We tried everything. Just when we were starting to give up, I got pregnant. Lily was our miracle baby, born during the hottest summer I can remember. Everything changed when she arrived. Daniel took up jogging to manage the stress. But one morning, he went for a run and never came back. He kissed me, said, "I'll be quick." And that was it. Gone. I called everyone, drove the streets. Phoebe hadn't seen him either. By nightfall, I was at the police station, but they brushed me off. Adults go missing all the time. But Daniel wasn't the type to just disappear. Days turned into weeks. Weeks stretched into months. No activity on his accounts, no sightings, nothing. It was like he vanished into thin air. And yet, Daniel loved us. He was steady, reliable. Phoebe took Lily and me in. We stayed with her until Lily started school. I searched everywhere, hospitals, shelters, morgues, haunted by questions I couldn't answer. Then one night, Phoebe sat down her tea and said, "There's something I have to tell you." Her eyes carried years of silence. "I'm not Daniel's biological mother." The words hit like a punch to the chest. She'd raised him since he was 8 after rescuing him from an abusive home. His real mother, Penelope, Phoebe's sister, had been out of the picture for years. But just 2 days before Daniel vanished, Penelope showed up out of nowhere. She was disheveled, unstable, and demanding money. She said she knew where Daniel lived and insisted on seeing him. Phoebe refused. Penelope said, "Then I'll go to him myself." Only after Daniel disappeared did Phoebe realize the weight of those words. We drove out to Penelope's old house in the countryside. It was falling apart. Rotting wood, a caved-in roof. There was nothing there but silence and weeds. Years passed. Lily got older and the questions started. Sometimes she asked about her dad outright. Other times she just looked like she was carrying something too heavy for a child. One afternoon, we were driving past Penelope's place. Lily stared out the window and said, "Mom, Dad's there." I slammed on the brakes. "What do you mean?" I asked. She pointed toward a cracked slab of concrete. "He told me. He's sad. He wants to come home." Lily had always sensed things most people couldn't. At my father's funeral, when she was just 3, she pointed to an empty spot in the room and said, "Grandpa's there smiling." I'd thought it was her imagination, but over time I learned not to doubt her. I told Phoebe everything. She didn't question it. She just nodded, then handed me a deed. The house nearly went to auction for unpaid taxes, but she'd paid them, not to keep it, but because she couldn't let it be erased. That afternoon, I went back with tools and purpose. The place was worse than before, but I started breaking up the concrete where Lily had pointed. Phoebe called a friend who brought a jackhammer. It took hours. Whoever poured that concrete meant for it to stay buried. And then we hit dirt, then bone. Small, fragile. I froze and called the police. They sealed off the area and began their investigation. But deep down, I already knew someone had been buried there. The DNA results came back a week later. The body wasn't Daniel's. My stomach dropped. If it wasn't him, then who was it? And how had Lily known someone was there? She became quiet, restless. She stopped talking about her dad, but started drawing pictures of dark rooms, sealed windows, and shadowy figures. Phoebe suggested therapy, but I knew this wasn't trauma. It was something else. The police couldn't ID the body. A man about 35, blunt force trauma, no ID. A stranger buried in Penelope's forgotten yard. I asked them to open a homicide investigation and list Penelope as a suspect. They agreed, but finding her was like chasing a ghost. Time passed heavy with not knowing. One night, I asked Phoebe, "Do you think she killed him?" She hesitated, then said, "Penelope never wanted anyone to be happy. Not Daniel, not you." She thought the world owed her something. That night, Lily woke up screaming. I rushed into her room. She clung to me, shaking. "He's not there," she whispered. But he wasn't alone. Someone was with him. I froze. "Who, baby?" She shook her head and cried. "He's behind the wall." And suddenly, I remembered those words like an echo from somewhere I hadn't yet found. The next day, I showed Phoebe Lily's latest drawing. It was the layout of a house, a thick wall, and behind it, a faint, lonely figure. Phoebe went pale. That wall, it was real. She explained there had once been a small room behind her parents' house. When Penelope moved in, she had it bricked up, claimed it was to keep moisture out. No one questioned it after that. My stomach churned. If Lily was right, and she always was, Daniel had been in that room. Or worse, he still was. We returned to the house. Phoebe came with me, though every step felt like reopening an old wound. She couldn't remember exactly where the room had been. Lily did. The moment we walked in, she turned left and pointed at a massive old cabinet. "There," she said. Phoebe went pale. That cabinet had been there for decades. No one had ever moved it. We dragged it aside. Behind it was a faint crack in the plaster. I grabbed a crowbar. My hands shook as I pulled. The air turned cold. My pulse pounded in my ears. Behind the cabinet was a wall of bricks hastily laid, unpainted, like someone wanted to erase a part of the house. I picked up a hammer. The first hit echoed through the empty hall. The second cracked the surface. The third revealed a hollow space. Phoebe held Lily back. I kept going. Brick by brick. The wall gave way. A stale, trapped breath escaped from the space inside. The hidden room was small and bare. Concrete walls, no windows. In the corner, a mattress, a rope, a bucket. On the wall, dozens, maybe hundreds of tally marks. And near the floor, scratched again and again. Just one letter, D, his initial, in the same slanted handwriting as the notes he used to leave me. There was no doubt Daniel had been kept in that room. My knees buckled. That wasn't a storage room. It was a prison. Police arrived fast. Forensics sealed off the house. They found hair in the mortar, fibers from Daniel's clothes, drag marks on the floor, but no sign of an exit. He could have been removed, an officer said, or worse. That night, I didn't sleep. Phoebe cried quietly in the next room. Lily finally drifted off from sheer exhaustion. I stared at the ceiling, heartbroken, terrified, and aching for answers. How long had he been in there, and where was he now? 2 days later, the police called. A blurry security video from a rural road showed a barefoot, filthy woman wandering aimlessly. When Phoebe saw it, she went pale. "It's her," she whispered. "Penelope." The search ramped up immediately. The footage was recent. Penelope was alive. And if she was alive, maybe the truth still had a shot. We were asked to help identify some items found nearby. A beat-up backpack stained and falling apart. Inside was a notebook. its pages torn and barely legible. But one word kept appearing. Daniel. Phoebe covered her mouth. It was Penelope's handwriting. She hadn't let him go. If anything, she'd spiraled deeper into obsession. A few days later, they found her collapsed in a field, dehydrated, weak, barely conscious. She was rushed to the hospital under police watch. They let me see her. The smell of neglect clung to everything. She stared blankly at the ceiling. The arrogance she once wore like armor was gone. Penelope, I said softly. It's Ivy. She didn't move, but a single tear slipped down her cheek. Where's Daniel? Phoebe stepped into the room. When she gently said Penelope's name, there was the slightest flicker, barely a blink. She reached for her hand, hesitant, torn between disgust and something that almost looked like mercy. The next day, Penelope finally spoke. Her voice was cracked and dry. He left me. No one understood. Not the doctors, not the police. Her words spilled out in fragments, jumbled, disconnected. Then she said a name we didn't recognize. Logan. Who's Logan? The investigator asked. He watched him when I couldn't. Fed him. Kept him safe. My stomach dropped. Someone else had been involved. They found Logan working at a warehouse nearby. An old acquaintance from rehab. At first, he denied everything. I don't know any Penelope. Never met Daniel. But when they showed him photos, something shifted. Not from guilt. Fear. Penelope had promised him money, a future, love. In exchange, he delivered food to Daniel and kept him restrained. Said Daniel was dangerous, that it was for his own good. Then one day, Daniel was gone. The rope had been cut. The door left open. Penelope lost it, Logan said. She screamed that he'd betrayed her. Everything changed. If Daniel had escaped, maybe he was still alive. But where was he? Why hadn't he reached out? Logan didn't know. Just said Penelope spiraled after that, obsessed, furious, calling Daniel a traitor who deserved to disappear. Phoebe and I left the station in silence, caught between fear and the tiniest flicker of hope. A week later, as I tucked Lily into bed, she gently touched my hand. Mom, she said, her voice steady. Dad isn't free yet. I froze. Where is he? She closed her eyes. I don't know, but he can't ask for help. He's waiting. After Logan's confession, the police widened the search, checking hospitals, shelters, surveillance footage. Nothing. It was like Daniel had vanished all over again. I lived suspended between dread and hope. Maybe he was hurt. Maybe he didn't remember us. Or maybe he didn't want to come back. But Lily kept saying things. One night she said he's close, but he doesn't remember us. I asked how she knew. In my dreams, she whispered. He cries. But he never says my name. We were stuck between two worlds. One ruled by facts, the other shaped by Lily's haunting, knowing dreams. Phoebe kept visiting Penelope, who remained under observation in the psych ward. One day, Penelope asked to see her alone. When Phoebe came back, she looked shaken. She said Daniel looked at her like she was a monster, she whispered. She said all she ever wanted was love, then laughed and said he'd never come back. I couldn't tell what was worse, what Penelope did or what she believed she was doing. Then everything changed. A psychiatric hospital 90 miles away called. They had a patient, no ID, found 2 months earlier wandering along a road, injured, dehydrated, confused. Lately, he'd started saying one word. Ivy. My heart stopped. Phoebe and I left immediately. She drove like the car had wings. At the hospital, a doctor explained that Daniel had partial amnesia. He barely spoke, trusted no one. But when he heard my name, something shifted. We stepped into the room. He was thinner, his hair longer, a rough beard across his face. His eyes were tired, but alive. He looked at me. My heart nearly stopped. Daniel, I whispered. He blinked. Ivy. Tears blurred my vision. I rushed to him. He reached out with a trembling hand. "I know you." I held him close. Phoebe stood in the doorway, tears silently falling. In the weeks that followed, fragments of Daniel's memory began returning. The room, the wall, Lily's face. He remembered escaping, collapsing by the road, a truck driver who picked him up. The hospital staff, noticing signs of trauma, transferred him to the psychiatric facility. Once his identity was confirmed, Penelope was arrested. This time the evidence stuck. Logan was charged too. Both were convicted. Kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, attempted murder. But justice for me wasn't the sentencing. It was the moment Daniel took Lily's hand, the light in her eyes, the calm in his. He still carried scars, some visible, others buried. But he had us now. He had names. He had hope. Penelope, who tried to erase the past, now faced a lifetime of emptiness, confined not just by bars, but by the ruin of her own mind. Life didn't go back to how it was, but it moved forward, slowly, gently, with love and presence. Daniel had nightmares. He couldn't be left alone at first, but Lily anchored him the way she'd sit beside him, quietly holding his hand. No words, just warmth. It told him, "You're safe now." And he was. 2 months later, Phoebe sold the old house. It had never been a home, just a relic of what we lost. The new owners, a couple of architects, said they planned to tear it down and start fresh. I smiled. The world needs rebuilding. Penelope got a long sentence. Even if she's ever released, there's nothing left for her. Reputation destroyed, body worn down, mind unraveling. Logan got less time, but no one wanted him back. His exile came not from prison, but from the world. We moved. New city, new rhythm, new story. I found a job. Daniel started therapy. Lily changed schools, made new friends, and finally laughed again. Really laughed. I never told her everything. She already knew too much. Someday she'll ask. I'll be ready. But for now, her laughter is enough. Daniel started writing quietly. Letters he never mailed. Pages he never showed. Just a way to make sense of everything. One day, he handed me a note. It said, "I thought about dying every day, but what stopped me was her name, Lily. Her name kept me awake. Her name made me hungry. Her name saved me." I cried, not out of sorrow, but from knowing. Even in the darkest place, he'd clung to something real. Her name had lit the way home. Months later, on a bright Sunday morning, we went to the park. Daniel pushed Lily on the swings, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years. I sat on a bench, heart full, and finally understood. Revenge doesn't look like it does in the movies. No screaming, no chaos, no explosive ending. Just survival, just peace. Penelope behind bars. Daniel free. Lily unafraid. That was our quiet, perfect victory. As the wind lifted Lily's hair and her laughter filled the air, I looked up and whispered, "We made it, Daniel. We came back." Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, like the video and subscribe to our channel. This is Revenge Scales, where justice always finds its way. See you next time.